Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the television shows, and then I come over here and I react to them. And I love to react to true crime over here. I am obsessed with true crime. I watch a lot of true crime documentaries. Last night, I finished, I can't remember what it was called, the Texas Cheerleading, it's on Max. It's about the Texas Cheerleading Murder, the Texas Cheerleading Murder Plot is what it was called. I finished that last night, so I will probably be doing my reaction to that over here in the next couple days. It's on Max if you want to watch it before I do my reaction to it. And if you guys remember, there was a made-for-TV movie with Holly Hunter back in the day. I think there's like 3 made-for-TV movies about this case. But anyway, I watched that last night. But a couple days ago, I watched this documentary that I saw on Netflix. And so I wanted to come over here and react to it today because I am so confused about this television show. First of all, I saw this documentary come up, and it's called Biggest Heist Ever, and it just came out on Netflix like a week ago, or 2 weeks. I think it came out just last week on Netflix, and it's called Biggest Heist Ever. And I was, first of all, surprised that it has like, the poster is kind of a crazy poster, and I was like, oh, like the poster drew me in, and I was like, this makes me want to watch it. Then I went, and it had been up for like a day after, when I saw it, and I went to the top 10 on Netflix, and it wasn't on the top 10 on Netflix, and I was like, almost every true crime documentary that comes out, or true crime documentary series that comes out on Netflix, hits the top 10, like, immediately. Like, I covered the JonBenet Ramsey one, the Ashley Madison one, I mean, all the Scott Peterson, Lacey Peterson one, every one that comes out on Netflix, usually, like, right away hits the top 10, And I was like, why is this documentary not on the top 10? And it's already been, like, 24 to 48 hours. I was confused about that. So, I go in, and I start watching this documentary. So, true story, if I wasn't going to cover it for you guys over here, I would have stopped watching it about 10 minutes in. I was so confused. So I was actually going to do this joke today when I came on here. It was going to be a very failed joke. I was going to talk about that I love any story that has to do with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because my husband and I, we got mass wealth off of Bitcoin. But I didn't think I could carry the joke, and the reason why is because I don't know anything about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. I don't think I've ever even, I don't know anything about cryptocoin or cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. I don't understand it. And so when I'm watching this documentary, which is about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, I'm so confused about it, right? And I think I watched the trailer before I watched the documentary. I think the documentary is like an hour and a half long. Anyway, it's like a one and done. It's like a standalone movie. That's what it was. So I went and I looked through the documentary, or the TV series, it wasn't on there. Then I went and looked through the movies, and it wasn't on the movies either, the top 10, and I was like, this isn't hitting on the movie. What's going on? So I go and I watch this, and I'm like, I do not understand what this is about. Okay, so let me just break it down for you real quick, okay? First of all, I would not recommend this documentary to anybody, all right? On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it maybe a half star. It was so poorly done. I thought the documentary was poorly put together. It makes no sense. It leaves out a lot of information, and in all honesty, and this was actually like the last part of my notes that I put on here, it felt like episode 1 in like a 6 to 8 part series is what it felt like. In fact, at the end of the documentary, one of the guys they interview, he says, there's obviously so much that we don't know, and I mean, and all this kind of stuff, and they go on about how there's so much more. I mean, like the filmmakers write to the guy that's in prison now, and he's like, there's more to the story, and I don't know if this is like they're going to come out with part 2 or whatever, but when you finish the documentary, it's like, there's no answers. It's not conclusive at all, except about this weirdo couple that I guess people are intrigued of, that I had never heard of, and it's the biggest heist in the world that ever happened. Okay, so this is what happened. So this couple, and their names are Heather Morgan and Ilya Lichtenstein, who is referred to as Dutch, they apparently did the biggest heist that's ever happened in the world. And I think it was like $72 million like of Bitcoin, but it translates to 4.5 billion. I think it's 4.2 or 4.5 billion dollars, okay, in real money. The problem is that this is where I don't understand it, okay? I mean, there's so much talk about Silicon Valley and Bitcoin and startup, and I'm like, okay, I make YouTube videos, right? I don't understand technology. I push record, and that's about as technological as we get. I don't even edit my videos. So they're talking about all this kind of stuff, and I felt literally, like, if you want to feel stupid, watch this documentary. Unless you understand all this stuff. I felt like the stupidest person in the world watching this documentary. They're talking about all this stuff. So it's about this woman, and Her name's Heather Morgan. At one point, they referred to her, this one guy's like, well, when I met her, I thought, oh my God, she's so elegant and professional. Okay, there's a lot of words that I would use to describe Heather Morgan. Elegant and professional are not two of those words at all, ever on a top 1,000 list of adjectives. I would never use definitely not the word elegant, okay? So she and this guy, so she starts working for all these startup companies in Silicon Valley, okay? And then her goal is just to get rich. And in high school, it was like very awkward. People made fun of her. She was kind of nerdy and all that kind of stuff. Ilya had a very similar background in high school. People made fun of him, things like that. He was a Russian immigrant that came here. And so people made fun of him for that. His friend that he was like best friends with growing up is like, talks about him a lot, and they interview him as well. They also interviewed this classmate who's like very worried about Heather, but they refer to him as a classmate. They don't like act like they were close friends or anything like that. A couple of classmates of Heather's. But anyway, and that she was kind of different, an outsider and all this kind of stuff. But then they show her at like all these startup companies and how she's like a go-getter, and she's like, she doesn't, okay, what they say in the video that they show does not match at all, okay? They basically like show her, like the pictures they show are like her, it's so weird. It's like, you know, like when you go to work and like the day before Thanksgiving, they have like a company pitch-in and it's like somebody brings pretzels and somebody brings like, you know, ranch dip. It's like they show her in a room like that, like a picture of her like at a pitch-in, and they're like, she's so elegant and professional. She's like leading the way of Silicon Valley. I'm like, what? And then all these people are like, yeah, and she did this and she did that. Okay, so her and this guy get together. She don't even really want to be with this guy, okay? But I think that she realizes that he can get her places that she can't get on herself. So then apparently they like move from California to New York, but sometime during that period they go on all these trips and they like steal all this Bitcoin. The problem is that you can't get, I know like I'm explaining this to you like I even understand shit about this. I don't understand shit about what I'm telling you right now, okay? None of it do I understand. The problem is that they can't get the Bitcoin. So apparently, like your Bitcoin wallet, like anybody can publicly see that. Like they can see what you're doing and what transactions you're making. They can even follow it. So they're trying to move all this money in and out. It's like 100,000 transactions they make or something like that, trying to move this money around. But everybody can see like every move they're making. The problem is the second that they try to like sell it, the way they get caught is that they start buying these gift cards for people for their wedding, okay? And that's how they trace the purchase of the gift cards with Bitcoin back to the addresses of who the gift cards were registered to, which was Heather and Ilya. That's how they catch them, okay? Which is rather stupid if you think about it. I don't know. They're like, well, then they speculate, well, maybe she wanted to get caught. I think it just, well, it's interesting. Maybe she wanted to get caught. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering that if she wasn't maybe working behind the scenes with the feds and things like that to take down Ilya and that he did it, because she basically gets off like completely free and he's still sitting in prison, but we'll get to that in a second. So they can't move this Bitcoin out, okay? It's not like they just have like this money in there. All they have to do is go into a bank and say, okay, like, you know, like pesos to dollars or something like that. Like we want to transfer this money, okay? Like, and we want cash on the dollar for it. They can't do that. Like, okay, we want our $4.5 billion. They can't do that. So, because it's stolen money, and they can see that it's stolen money because they can see where they stole it from. They stole it from this one company. Anyway, so it's just sitting there. They don't really have it. They can spend it on other things that they can buy with Bitcoin and things like that, but they can't like take it out. It's not like they have $4.5 billion in cash. And that becomes the problem. So they're just kind of like sitting on it, okay? Well, in the interim, she has this drive to be super famous. So she starts this online personality that's a rapper, okay? Maybe the worst rapper you have ever seen in the entire world, and like does all these outrageous videos. That's obviously she's doing them because they're so outrageous, and she realizes she's a bad rapper, and she just wants to get attention for being like super crazy and doing all this crazy cringe shit. And her name is Razzle Khan, okay? And so then that comes into it. So then it's like she's this rapper in New York City, and she wants to like, she's working with all these people to like put out these videos, and I don't know. The whole thing is so bizarre. Let me get into my notes here for a second. So yeah, it talks about them being like real awkward and growing up, which of course is like a great excuse for, you know, why they stole $4.5 billion. Then she starts this thing as Razzle Khan. And then after that, this guy refers to her that works for one of the startup companies as Bitcoin Bonnie and Cryptocurrency Clyde, which I absolutely love that he said that. I'm putting that in the title of my video. I think that's what they should have called that. If they had called this documentary Bitcoin Bonnie and Cryptocurrency Clyde, they would have gotten a lot more views than calling it the biggest heist ever. Because it's the biggest heist ever that nobody ever cared about, because nobody can understand what's going on unless you bought Bitcoin. What's so interesting about it is in this documentary, so they stole all this Bitcoin from people, right? But there's only one person that they ever interview. Now, the Bitcoin that they stole was $72 million worth of Bitcoin, okay? But he had invested $10,000, and he is shitty. He is shitty, because that was going to be the down payment on his house. And I do feel bad for this guy, okay? I do feel bad for this guy. And I do know people that made some money off of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I don't understand it, okay? I don't understand it at all. Is it like a lemonade stand? I'm confusion. But anyway... But he is so pissed. But what's crazy to me is, like, he's the only one that they interviewed. The only one that had money stolen from him through the whole thing. He's the only one that had any money interviewed. Or he's the only one that got interviewed that had any money stolen from him through the whole thing. So then they go in and they take, like, all their computers and stuff, and then they end up arresting them. And so then they speculate that his dad had something to do with it. But they go into very little explanation about that. They're like, oh, this one guy's like, yeah, we always knew his dad had something to do with it. But his dad, at the very end, never made any comment on the documentary, and they don't prove that his dad had anything to do with it. Which I think is interesting that they get in this major documentary, and they throw around all these allegations with nothing to back it up. I mean, literally, they interview, like, federal agents, and the federal agents, like, they say all this stuff, and they're like, yeah, it's like the craziest thing in the entire world that we did, and we said we were arresting her, and she's like, can I get my cat? And then at one point, they go, and they go going through their stuff, and they do, like, the search and seizure, and they go in, and they have, like, in one of their drawers, these are tech people, okay? I don't know why this was so surprising to the federal agents. They had in a drawer a Ziploc bag that said burner phones on it. And they're like, oh my God, this is the first time that we've ever, like, done a search warrant on somebody that had a Ziploc bag of burner phones. Really? Have you ever done drug dealers? Because I've been sober for 30 years, and I can tell you, of all the drug dealers I have known that have gotten sober and back in the day when I was using, drug dealers and also a lot of people out there that are having affairs, and millions of people out there have burner phones, okay? Yes, the fact that they had it labeled on a Ziploc bag was kind of bizarre, but they're technological people. If you looked in that drawer, they had everything. They had cords in there, and they would say, like, USB cord, and they had all the cords in a Ziploc bag. So it doesn't surprise me they had a Ziploc bag. It was like everything that was supposed to be like, woo, shock value was like so boring in this. I was completely confused. So then they talk about, when they bring in the dad stuff, they don't explain it at all, but they talk about how there's like a national security issue, but they don't ever say what the national security issue is. They implicate that it's like, that they're part of like the Ukraine and all this kind of stuff, and that they could have fled there, but they stayed in New York, and it's a national security issue, but they don't explain any of it. They don't explain any of it. It's literally a character study of this couple that is completely wackadoodle, and probably on a genius level that I don't understand, okay? That really figured out cryptocurrency early. Like, they got into it early. Like, on an MLM, pyramid scheme, like, they were like the first people. Like, they got into it early and figured it out and were able, like, because these people are like, damn, they were computer hackers. Were they, though? Or did they just understand how to, like, I don't know. Like, they had this computer hacker, and he, like, helped the feds, and I'm like, okay, but why aren't you sitting in prison? Because you're helping the feds now, but you were like one of the biggest computer hackers in the world. I don't know. The whole thing made no sense to me. I was so confused about all of it. And then at the end of it, he gets sentenced to jail. I think he gets sentenced to 5 years in jail. And she's out on probation, and they show her, and guess where she's at? She is performing her raps. She is giving lectures at cryptocurrency conferences. What? She is the biggest, that is literally like having, if they had survived, Bonnie and Clyde. It's like Clyde sitting in prison, and Bonnie giving seminars to the police on how to catch a thief. Like, it's bizarre to me. And at this point, I was like, was she like an informant for the police, for the feds? And nobody, how do you make a documentary like this? And one guy, and he says, she didn't really have anything to do with it. She helped me transfer the money. Well, basically, what she did was money laundering, 100%. So why is she not sitting in prison for money laundering, okay? Yeah, my grandma went to prison for embezzlement. Why is she not in prison for money laundering? And he's sitting there for 5 years. 5 years, which is very limited. And so they basically, this other hacker guy, this guy was the most interesting thing on the whole show to me. The other guy that was the hacker that was like working with the feds, he had gotten arrested previously. It made me wonder, like, are they trying to work with Ilya and Heather Morgan to try to, like, figure out how to keep this from happening in the future? I don't know, because it seemed to me like, how is she just out there at cryptocurrency conferences, like giving speeches and stuff and hanging out at dinners and things like that, when her ex, or whatever he is now, is in prison for the same thing that she did, and she's hanging out at cryptocurrency conferences? Like, was she an informant? And they didn't say that, because there's a lot they don't say in the documentary. It was so confusing. And then at the very end, the producers keep on trying to get in contact with Ilya. He's the guy that's, you know, he's the one that did it all, and he's sitting in prison. And he writes him this letter, and he says that there is so much more to the story that they don't even know. And they interview this guy, and he says, there's obviously so much that we don't know. And I'm like, at that point, I like pause the screen on my iPad, because I'm like, how much more time do we have? And I had like a minute and like 8 seconds. And I was like, what? So he's saying that there's obviously so much more to the story. She has said that there's so much more to the story. They don't interview her at all, but she's said it through other people. The friends are saying there's obviously so much more to the story. The computer hacking genius guy is saying there's so much more to the story. The feds are saying there's so much more into the story, but you're ending it? What is going on here? I'm like, why did I just waste an hour and a half of my life watching this stupid documentary about two people that I don't care about and a rapper named Rosal Khan? It was stupid. The documentary is stupid. It was a waste of my time. Don't watch it. It makes no sense. They should have made this. I felt like a rush job to me. Or something else, like they got to the end of it and then they found out like more about the case or something and they had to just get the documentary out. I don't know. It just, okay, when they say there's more to the story, there is more to the original story. Yes, I will say that. There's obviously more to the filmmaking of this story too. Because it can't just be, if they were going to do it and it was just going to be a character study about Heather Morgan and Ilya Lichtenstein, then they would have done a character study. They would have gone more in and shown like all the background of their life. But they don't. They do a little bit of that. They kind of show what they were like in high school. They show some of her videos or TikToks and stuff like that. But they don't really go in deep and show a whole lot more than that. They don't really talk a lot. I mean, I don't know. I just got done with it. And I was like, what did I just watch? This was so stupid. I don't think they made anybody look good or bad in the whole thing. I was confused about the whole thing. And then at the end, they start talking about, people are like, yeah, I kind of see him as Robin Hood because he's kind of like stealing from the rich. And I'm like, except for the guy that they interviewed that lost $10,000 he was going to put as a down payment on his first home. Like, he wasn't a rich person. Like, what about him? I felt it was dumb. The documentary is stupid. Don't waste your time. Anyway, if you watch it, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you understood it better than me, good for you. If you understand cryptocurrency, I don't know what to tell you. I don't understand cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, or anything. And I probably won't be watching another documentary unless it's trending on Netflix, and this one was not. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.